This creepypasta contains recordings of weapons firing and substantial explosions from real combat encounters. This is intended to embellish the story as it progresses. Headphone users have been warned. A surround sound system, however, will work wonders. Enjoy.
Here we go!
Shut up, Mickey.
M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. Forever let us hold our banner high, 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 high. Boys and girls from far and near, you're welcome as can be. M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E. Who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O-U-S-E, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. Forever let us hold our banner high, 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 high.
Must have been marching under this hot Afghanistan sun for nearly an hour now. Stupid Lance Corporal Cunningham decided to clean his weapon on post, just as our new LT replacement turned the corner and saw Cunningham sitting behind the jersey barrier, with the cleaning rod down the barrel of the weapon and the bottle of CLP clearly visible, so there was no way to mistake what he was doing. We all thought our LT would be refining the op order with all the other NCOs for our patrol tomorrow. Patrolling outside the wire this week. My favorite. It gets me outside of these sandbagged walls that we call a bare base. Only 8 months until I'm out of this cesspool, and only 2 more years until I get out of the Corps. I won't ever have to put up with these terrible role models we call leadership after my contract is up. Especially those leaders that have us marching in a bare base. I could just see it now. A sniper could pick one of us off, and then indirect fire will come shortly after. We shoot at the lonely hills off to the east of our base, then we pop smoke, get in our Humvees, and venture out to find nothing but the enemy's spent shells. That's what it's been like these past 4 months. Eat the apple, F the Corps, as they say. We left base around 0700, bright and early for this patrol. Still hot as our meter read 121 degrees Fahrenheit back on base. You know, it gets me thinking, the people that settled here thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, they had to have come here in the wintertime. There's no way somebody would want to settle here in a place that's already 121 degrees Fahrenheit at 7 o'clock in the morning. How can you even enjoy hot coffee? Well, actually, I can always enjoy hot coffee. But I'm in the back of the Humvees trying to listen to the radio as it is squawking. But the Humvees are shaking so loudly, it's hard for me to hear exactly what is being said. And keep in mind, half of it is brevity codes. Minutes pass, the Humvees in front of us come to a halt, and the ones behind us do as well. They're calling in EOD. They found something up ahead. How long is this gonna take? It appears as though there's a car way out in the distance that is very suspicious, as it's never been there before, and it looks like it's abandoned because it's sitting off next to this little tree patch with several boulders around it. It's clearly off of the beaten path, and it's not something you would really take off-road. More like something you would see a little British woman driving as she just got her license at 22 years old. Moments later, a foul odor comes from Cunningham. He must have nearly crapped his trousers, as he has already consumed a whole MRE. We pull up the Humvees in our particular practical defense formation so we can get out and stretch our legs. We're not too worried about getting in contact at this location. We've always used this dirt road for so many months. Never have we ever had an engagement here. Hours upon hours go by. The only cold steel part of my rifle is the part that got a little wet as I was taking a swig of water from my canteen. Everything else, hot as hell. Heat is just wafting as I adjust my vest. EOD, please, just hurry up. A few more hours go by. And then, out of the distance, EOD arrives. Yay! Finally! They make their way over to one Humvee that drives them a bit closer to the abandoned suspicious vehicle, so they don't have to walk a few football lengths just to get to the car itself in their huge EOD suits. I wouldn't blame them. And plus, we waited all this long, so we don't want to wait any longer. About 15 minutes go by, and the Humvee with the EOD dude is coming back. Probably nothing. We wasted all that time, and there was nothing in the vehicle. EOD talks to our lieutenant. Lieutenant relays that we're gonna blow it up from here. Wait, so we're just going to shoot at it? I ask out loud. We waited all that long just to be told that all we need to do is shoot at this thing? Hey, I'm glad we got EOD's approval for this one, LT. The NCOs look at me with a death stare, as if to say shut up before he comes up with worse ideas. Most of us go prone for this one, especially the 240s. I lay down on the ground, just nice and relaxed, ready to unload on this static vehicle. I look out of my ACOG sight, my finger just gently tickling the trigger of the M4, waiting for the go-ahead to open fire. Mark 19 is even ready up there in the Humvee. Let's see if this vehicle is really packed with explosives. And just as I think the LT is about to give us the go-ahead to open fire, he has this stupid look on his face as he's looking downrange at the vehicle, and he licks his lips in the most annoying manner possible, and tells us to hold up. Jeez, LT, I say to myself. Our LT gets halfway into his Humvee, and he's in that posture for a little over 5 minutes while we are all ready to rock and roll with the Mark 19 and the 240 Bravos ready to light this suspicious car up. It would be so great if someone shot LT in the ass. Such an easy target right now. It'll take him out of the fight for sure. The LT pokes his head back out.
Stand by.
Well, I haven't heard that enough.
Flyboys are coming.
Our LT shouts. Oh, sweet. Well, we got the Navy in on this operation, huh?
Not the Navy, this one, it's the Air Force.
Oh, it's the Air Force. Wow. Okay, this might actually be pretty cool. It's only been about 5 minutes and we heard the fighter jet coming, ready to shoot at the suspicious vehicle. Oh, wow. I haven't seen this before ever, so I actually like this call from RLT. Good on you, Lieutenant. Whoa! That was a daisy chain of explosions that just went off, and it's clear that the parked car was containing a large amount of explosives linked to plenty more around the area, ready for our convoy to get into the mix. I've never seen an explosion so massive in person before. We arrived at the village that we were supposed to check out. A lot of local citizens here. A lot of innocent people. I look over to my right, and I see a little girl at about the age of 6, a little distant from her parents. Or at least I think those are her parents. They're standing next to a single house, and it's about 50 yards away from the little girl. As I look at her, I think about my 3-year-old daughter back at home with my wife, and then a familiar pattern of colors catches my attention towards the ground. It's a Mickey Mouse doll. Mickey Mouse was all covered in dirt. I thought this was a strange coincidence as we were singing the Mickey Mouse Jody yesterday as we were marching to Cunningham's actions. I look over at my squad and I see that my LT is talking to one of the civilians along with a couple other NCOs. All is calm here. We have nothing to really worry about. These people seem welcoming, but still defensive. Or shy, rather. Shy might be a better term to use. I walk over to the Mickey Mouse doll and pick it up by its head because his clothes looked as if they were in the mouth of a rabid dog as they were in tatters. I wipe away the dirt and I look over at the little girl who has a facial expression of concern, curiosity. I think of the innocence and how she was all still might be kind of morbid, but put together. I've seen a lot of innocent kids killed, burnt and charred, dismembered, some riddled with bullets as their corpse resembled ground beef. Some would still be crying in agony, but others would be still and quiet as a windless night. But this little innocent girl was in no way a threat, nor was she being threatened. As I wipe away the dirt from Mickey Mouse's yellowish pale face, my eyes look over at the girl, and then back to the doll. Back to the girl, and back to the doll again. I slightly walk towards the little girl, while at the same time I bend just carefully forwards to get down to her level. My vest probably looks rather intimidating, as it adds a considerable amount of bulk to my torso, when really I'm just a little over 160 pounds standing at 5'10". The heat coupled with the amount of patrols we have been doing these past several months have shaven about a dozen pounds off of me so far. I slowly hand the Mickey Mouse doll over to the little girl, and then a smile is brought to her face, as if the joy that entered her mind of me giving her a doll was the only joyful feeling she has received in months. Unfortunately, that probably isn't far from the truth. She said something in Arabic to me, but it wasn't all that clear for me to really interpret or to tell somebody and have them interpret. I don't even speak Arabic. But I would assume that she had said something kind to me, as in, thank you, or I like this doll. She walks back to who I think her parents are, near the home. My eyes scan the little village. This place is all intact. Not a single bullet that I can see from where I stand. This worries me, however. There have been a few times where I would be sent out on patrols like this to villages that resemble this one, and then a few days later, the village would be obscured in smoke and burning embers would litter the air. I am not a man of God, but I found myself looking up at the sky, and I said to myself, if there is a higher power out there somewhere, please just spare this village. I don't ever want to smell the odor of blood and smoke again, nor feel the heat of a burning home on my face, and feel my weapon pointing down range with my finger on the trigger, ready to shoot at a living being. I indulge in the peaceful moment of just standing there. No orders that I have to follow currently. I just made a little girl's day, or her entire week, perhaps even her whole month, just by giving her a doll. At least I like to think that I helped her morale. My mind then focuses on my squad and the rest of the convoy. My right hand then moves to the pistol grip on my M4 where it normally sits. My trigger finger just slightly above the trigger guard, and I turn 180 degrees and walk back to my Humvee. I get back into the hunk of metal we call a vehicle, as these things are way overweight from the amount of armor that's attached to them. Our LT asks us a question regarding MVGs over the radio.
Hey, Scorpion 3, you have any MVGs in your Humvee?
I forgot to bring mine. Copy, we have MVGs mounted already, and we have 2 extras in the back. An explosion just went off at 3 o'clock of my position. The mounted 240s automatically shifted their focus towards the explosion. Oddly, there wasn't any communication for the first few seconds. I believe a lot of us were trying to recover from the blast of the explosion that just occurred. Shortly after, that's when the familiar sound of gunshots started ringing out. I say to Davenport, who's mounting the 240 up above me, to shift focus to the 6 o'clock since we are towards the back of this formation. We already have enough 240s pointed to the other direction. I get more 7.62 rounds from the back, ready to feed them to him if necessary. And that's when an unforgettable sound emerges from the distance. An adversary's artillery round just blasted a house right in front of me. It was the most spectacular explosion I've ever seen, and fortunately me and my team were okay. However, our Humvee was disabled. Black smoke appearing from the hood due to some shrapnel that probably punctured the engine itself. Time to dismount, take cover, and try to find a way to flank the enemy wherever they might be. An adversary's artillery round might tell us that they're too far away for us to really engage them on foot. but we cannot stay inside the vehicle. I hear somebody yell out that there's a sniper somewhere as we dismount, so I keep that in mind. I get behind a slab of concrete. It's the best I can do right now. It's not big enough for an entire squad, but it is big enough for one other teammate to be right behind me, which there is, covering my 6. I peer out from the concrete, look through my ACOG sight at any of the windows in the houses nearby, looking for any kind of sniper. Seconds go by, and then all of a sudden, I see a muzzle flash in one of the second-story windows. I notice that this shooter is at an angle. He could easily see us, but it's hard for my teammates to actually pinpoint where he is coming from. This so-called sniper is really an individual with a rifle, just taking sustained shots. Not one that can hit you from a few hundred meters away, but a problem nonetheless. I take a gamble and I lean out of cover, exposing my entire body just to get a better angle on this shooter. And I do. I see his head through my ACOG sights. I breathe in, and then I exhale, matching my natural respiratory pause with the squeeze of the trigger. The body dropped within a fraction of a second. A red mist painted the window frame, and I could just imagine that there's already a puddle of blood dripping down off of the window sill. I fire several more rounds from my M4 at the window and around the window itself, just in case there's somebody hiding behind one of the walls in there. And also, why not? I have 10 magazines with me. The barrage of firepower concludes. All is quiet, and then I hear some Marine units communicating next to us. I'm under the assumption that the other Marine units had it a lot worse than we did. Whereas we just had one, there were numerous adversaries to the northeast of us. The smell of carbon from my M4 seeps out of the chamber as I release my magazine to insert a new one. Some carbon gets on my fingertips as I close my dust cover. My eyes staring down a destroyed alleyway. Murphy's Law just had to kick in at this moment. Everything I didn't want to happen, happened. Me and my squad clear out the sector around us and relay our lace reports. Still green, just down 1 mag. As everyone else relays their status, I look in a pile of rubble next to me, and it's as though I almost predicted I would see her, the little girl. Why couldn't it be anybody else lying there in the rubble? Why did it have to be this little girl? All I see is a charred body, but for some reason I just know it's her. She was smashed by the concrete that exploded. I know I can't really confirm this is her, but something else tells me to take a closer look, see what I could do, but it's no use. They're obviously long gone. As I'm looking in the rubble, a little oddly shaped dark object catches my attention. I examine it by sort of kicking it with my boots a little bit, and I notice that it's very light in weight. So I turn it over with the barrel of my rifle, since it's still hot and smoking. As the object turns over, I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's the Mickey Mouse doll head. I see a little bit of the cotton that was stuffed in the head is burnt and black at the ends of Mickey Mouse's head, as if any innocence Mickey Mouse resembled has escaped and has sealed off any re-entry point. A gust of wind bends the flames from the burning rubble towards me. I can feel the heat, and it reminds me quickly that I'm still in a dangerous area and far from home. Smoke suffocates my lungs right when I take in a deep breath, after I realize that it's nearly certain that the little girl died right here. This is why I absolutely hate making acquaintances out here in the Middle East. I've come across some of the most rich-hearted, joyful families in the Middle East, but many of them, unfortunately, our friendships never lasted more than a week. Instead, me and my fellow Marines would be avenging their deaths from a distance with our rifles, grenades, and airstrikes. I glance over at my squad, and the sergeant doesn't say a word, but he motions me over with his hands for me to get closer to the squad. It looks as though we will be doing our typical strategy to this little village. Set up recon units outside the village, call in airstrikes. It's not clear who is an innocent civilian and who is a terrorist. At least that's what our leadership says. I understand that we don't want to risk any more casualties, as I do believe I heard a medic say that we had a sucking chest wound from one of the guys from Echo Squad. I know I can easily find out the status of the fellow Marine from Echo Squad that got hit, but at this point, I don't even care. I don't want to know. I've already put up with numerous deaths on this deployment, and I've already put up with one today from somebody who was completely innocent, and I'm willing to make that call. Much to my surprisement, we remained inside the little village for an additional 5 hours, until we then pulled out after we had our recon units set up, and we went back to base. The flyboys will take care of it tonight. The little village that was intact will be in ashes by morning. 10 months have passed. It feels like I left the Middle East years ago, but it really wasn't all that long. You would assume that I would be happy and joyful to be back in the United States. I only wish that was 100% true. There's so much for me to enjoy here when I see friends and families. However, several weeks after I returned from deployment, my wife told me that she was no longer interested in being my wife anymore. You could almost see this coming. It's just such a cliche. I returned from deployment, and this is the news she has for me. I asked, what are we going to do with our daughter? I asked that to myself millions of times, but I only asked my wife about 5 times until she permanently left the household. The good thing about this depressing news is that it turned out I got to keep my daughter, and my ex-wife said that she never wanted to see her daughter ever again. I guess she was never a good mother then. That works for me. I don't want to be around that lady anymore. Years and years went by. I got to see my daughter grow up to be 10 years old now. She's fantastic, witty, bright, funny, happy. I think back to the years when I was in the military, all the friends I met, all the friends that I called family, the Thanksgiving dinners that we had while we were overseas, not able to be home. I am happy, however, of where I'm at now. I have a great job that I actually really enjoy. I do go in to get a massage every now and then and go to the chiropractor to relieve the pain that my body has gone through with all the physical demands earlier in my life. But over the past few weeks, there have been consecutive days where something has happened whenever I've coughed, and I'm actually really concerned about this. I know it sounds silly, why would I be so worried about the way I cough, but whenever I cough, it feels as though a lung is coming out. There is blood. I have kept a secret from my friends, my coworkers, my family, and perhaps I went into the doctor, but I didn't even tell the doctor about this yet. I know of all the bad things that this could be cancer, and it probably is, which is weird because I've never smoked. I've known people that smoked like a chimney, and they're still living just fine. I've seen Breaking Bad before. I know that this probably means that it's lung cancer, although I am staying optimistic. In a time like this, you would assume that I should take this very seriously, so what I will do is go to the doctor today. I walk into the doctor's office. I'm in the reception area. I wait a little while. There's a little kid with his mother sitting next to me. He's playing with some Hot Wheels cars. They have a TV there, and the channel that they have the TV on is, oh no, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I try to make light of the situation because of the past experience I had with that girl in Afghanistan where I gave her the Mickey Mouse doll and she ended up getting killed. The best way I can cope with it is to stay away from looking at anything to do with Mickey Mouse. In fact, I haven't bought my daughter anything to do with Mickey Mouse as she was growing up. Right now, my daughter would probably say that she's too old for dolls anyways. But a lot of people would say that nobody's too old for Mickey Mouse. I assumed I was going to be here for a good while, and the kid wasn't really interested in watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Instead, he was just playing with his Hot Wheels cars. So I asked the lady, may I change the channel? She just ignored me. So I picked up the remote that was sitting on the coffee table, changed the channel, and what do you know? More Mickey Mouse. I tried changing it again, but it doesn't change channels. I tried pushing the buttons again and again. Nothing would work. I even tried turning off the TV. That didn't work. I looked around for another remote. Maybe this is the wrong one. Couldn't find anything. This is strange. About 5 minutes go by and I look up at the TV screen just to look at what Mickey Mouse is doing, if I could even bear to watch. But then something happened to the TV. And I had this weird uncanny feeling as to what I was looking at. Because Mickey Mouse was looking back at me, but with a weird look in his eyes. And he was pointing at me. But it just stopped. Has the TV frozen? And it was just a weird coincidence? My body starts to tremble. I get really cold. And then I start to cough. Very violently. Blood is not only coming out of my mouth, but it's also coming out of my nose. I don't know if what was just on my skin near my jawline was blood that was coming out of possibly my ears, or if it was just sweat. The painful sensation sits in my throat as I'm coughing, and I hear laughter in the background. I go down to the ground and I look up and I see on the TV Mickey Mouse just still staring at me, and I hear this crazy laughter. Blood starts to cover my vision. I don't know if there's blood coming out of my eyes or I'm coughing up blood and it's landing in my face and smearing all over the place. I look down at the ground of the reception floor and I could just slide ever so easily because of my blood. My hands are slipping and I try getting up, but I still can't. I can feel people around me, but it doesn't feel as though I'm going anywhere. I don't know if time has slowed down, but it feels like I've been on the ground long enough that somebody should be doing something. And that's when the voices around me just stopped. Everything was silent. I try looking around the room, but it was as if the lights just all turned off. My surroundings are completely invisible. It is so dark in the room I can't see a thing. Moments later, a gentle, flickering light then illuminates the corner where the TV is standing. I just hear this absurd laughter and a feeling of hopelessness. My body then sinks to the floor. I can't push myself back up off the floor anymore. I just feel as though I'm being held down by some force. And then slowly but surely, I feel very light. As if I'm just floating. I thought about my daughter. She'll be the next one to die.
See ya real soon.